In this lecture, we will learn how to increase the power of a jump in the runtime. First, we will build another obstacle for our character. To overcome this obstacle, it will need to know how to jump higher. Let's begin. For the purposes of this lecture, we need to create another challenge. This time it will be a wall that interferes with the progression of our character. Please do it with me now. Select any floor tile in this level. Now click on this little icon to discover its location in the content browser. Now drag and drop the wall static mesh and position it like this. It needs to block progression of our character. Save the level, and let's test it out. That's exactly what we wanted to achieve. Our character can't progress since this wall we just created blocks his path. Sadly for it, it can't jump high enough to overcome this obstacle. Now what can we do? We could teach it to jump higher, but it wouldn't be fun if it could jump higher all the time. It has to be something temporary and gained through a pickup. What do you think? The time has come when you will create your very own blueprint for the first time within this course. Let's do it. Please navigate to your Blueprints folder. If you don't have Blueprints folder, please create it now. Open the folder and right-click somewhere in an empty space. Choose Blueprint class. Then choose Actor. Actor is a type of blueprint that can be placed or spawned in the world. It may consist of several objects like static meshes, skeletal meshes, lights, sounds, etc. Now let's give a name to our very first blueprint. I will call it BP_jump boost pickup. Name it whatever you want, but please make sure that its name makes sense to you or someone who might be working with you. Now double-click on this blueprint to open its graph editor. Here we go. As you can see, it's absolutely empty for the moment, as it should be. It will be our goal to create its visual and logical parts. Let's begin with the visual part. At the moment, let's not overcomplicate the visual side and simply use a cube mesh for a pickup. Click on Add and then choose Cube. Now let's give a meaningful name to the cube. Okay, let's position it so it looks better. We could also give it a more vivid color. To enhance its visual representation in the game, we can add a rotating movement to it. Click on Add and search for rotating movement. Click on it. Now, when rotating movement component is selected, you can browse its details here. These rotation rate properties are used to adjust the speed and the direction of rotation. I will leave these properties default, but you can play with them to find the setting that you like. Now we can compile our blueprint. It's time to place it in our world. Click on this icon to browse to the location of this blueprint in the content browser. Please drag and drop the blueprint from the content browser to the level viewport. Position it the way you like. Don't forget to save changes once in a while. Okay, now we can test out the level. Click on Play. It rotates just the way we want it. It's because we added rotating movement component to this blueprint. Now let's get closer and see what happens. The cube blocks our path. That's not exactly what we wanted. Our aim is to make the cube overlap our character but not block its path. Let's remove its collision. To do it, please return to the Blueprint Editor graph by clicking on this tab or by double-clicking on the blueprint in the content browser. select the cube from components of this blueprint. In the Details panel, search for collisions. Okay, as you can see, the collision presets of this cube are set to block all. This is the reason why our character was colliding with it. As I said, our goal is to make the character overlap with the cube. We can simply do it by assigning a custom collision preset where we set all collisions to overlap. Now, when all collision responses are set to overlap, the cube shouldn't interfere with our path anymore. Let's compile this blueprint and test it out. Great. Now we can move through the cube without colliding it. It's time we move forward and make the cube grant us an increase in the jumping force. Now open the third-person character blueprint tab. If you closed it previously, you can always find your third-person character blueprint in the content browser. Okay, now let's think about how we can make the jumping force of this character increase. One of the ways this can be done is by creating a custom event. Right-click anywhere in the empty space of this graph. Search for custom event, click on it. Now you can give a name to your custom event. I urge you to give everything you create a meaningful name so that it's easy to find in the future. I will name this event Increase Jumping Force. Now it's time to build the logic of this event. Our goal was to increase the jumping force of our character. This is regulated by jump velocity property in the character movement component of this blueprint. Let me show you. First, click on the character movement component. Now, in its Details panel, search for jump. There it is. Please remember that the default value of jump force is 700 units. We don't change anything here since we only want the jumping force to increase after we pick up the relevant blueprint in the runtime. Thus, we simply need to make this jump velocity property changed in the custom event we are building. To do so, drag out the character movement component and drop it somewhere in this location. Then drag from its output pin and search for set jump velocity. Click on it. Let's connect it to our custom event and set its value to 1500. We don't want a permanent boost, but we rather want the effect of the pickup to last only for a while. This is when the delay node comes to play. Drag from the execution pin of the set jump velocity node, release it, and search for the delay node. Set the delay value to, let's say, 15 seconds. Now we can reset the jump velocity back to 700 units. For this, we can copy and paste this chunk of code and simply set the value of jump velocity back to 700. Let's analyze. This is the custom event we created. Once it is called, the jump velocity of the character movement component will be set to 1500. It will remain 1500 units until this delay timer is over. Then the jump velocity will return back to 700 units. But all this won't happen if something doesn't call our increased jumping force event. We will call it from the jump boost pickup blueprint that we created previously. But we will do it in the next lecture. The topic we are going to discuss is called casting. It's a quite complex topic and a lot of people are confused by it. But don't you worry. We'll do it step by step and I will explain each details in depth, so I'm sure you'll do good. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next lecture.